What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the top 5 best rapier builds in New World Aeternum for both PvE and PvP. Also, as I will cover a lot of builds so not to spend too much time, for each setup I will give you a quick overview of its playstyle. Then as well I will explain the best skill tree setup, then what gear should you wear, then even how many attributes should you allocate for each stat and much more. So moving over to the first build, which is the lifestaff and the rapier. This setup is a very mobile healer build with main focus on healing and having the option to survive multiple enemies at once. The rapier weapon is one of the best options for a healer, as it offers defenses and mobility with a lot of abilities to help escape enemies or reposition. If you're looking for a strong PvP and PvE build that uses the rapier and is pretty unkillable in 1v1s and small scale PvP, then here it is. So, taking a closer look at the setup, and for the weight we have two options, to either way go with light or medium category. Both of the choices are really good, it just depends on what playstyle you prefer more. So going with light and having extreme mobility, or going with medium and sacrificing that a bit for more defense. I personally will take medium, but this won't really impact the performance if you choose either option. Next we have attributes, and we want to go with 25 strength, then from 400 to 450 focus and 200 constitution. In this build our primary weapon is the lifestaff and healing, so we will focus most of our stats on that, while for the rapier we will use the Ember Arboreal gem to convert its damage to scale also from the focus. And mostly we will use the rapier for mobility, defense and high IQ plays, while then the lifestaff will be for everything else. And then finally we have the skill tree, and this is how it should look like for the lifestaff. So our main abilities are structured around some of the best AoE healing spells, so we can use this setup for every single content. And then again, this is how it should look like for the rapier. So then on the other hand, for the rapier, we went with the best defenses and mobility tools in the game, as the rapier is mainly a secondary weapon to assist and help the lifestaff to survive and outplay the enemy. If you're interested in the best gear, perks, consumables and everything else, then keep watching until the end of the video. And overall, if you're looking for super fun and one of the best healer builds in the game, then here it is. Then for the second build we have the firestaff and the rapier. The setup excels at close quarter fighting and uses its extreme mobility to attack and escape. The rapier is built to hit super hard with its specs, giving it enough damage to kill even the most tanky healers or very strong bosses, while the firestaff provides decent ranged offensive options that can do good damage thanks to the high critical rate, while also providing excellent utility with its gap closers. Overall, the setup has the best stamina sustain you could get, making it excellent for a lot of dodging, especially when you're outnumbered in PvP or in a hard expedition. So let's take a look at the build. For our gear choice we have two options, so either way the light or medium armor. Both are good choices, it just depends if you're willing to sacrifice survivability for more damage. I personally prefer to go with medium option. Next we have the attributes, and we want to get 25 strength, 300 dexterity, from 300 to 350 intelligence, and 25 focus for that cooldown reduction. As I'm using medium armor, so that is the place where I get my survivability from. However, you can even decide to go full light armor with 0 constitution, or perhaps medium armor with 50 to 100 constitution, and in that case you would sacrifice about 5 to 10% damage. Next up we have our setup for the firestaff. This skill tree is made around AoE damage, and increasing as much burning DPS as possible. And then again taking a look at the rapier, and this is how it should look like. So we mainly focus on quick hits, and as we are already squishy, so having two strong defensive skills will come in very handy. If you're interested in the best gear, perks, consumables and everything else, then keep watching until the end of the video. Overall, if you want a very strong PvP build, then this is it. Then for the next build we have the bow and the rapier. This setup is a high skilling option that offers some of the highest damage and mobility potential in the game. The key to this build is stacking high bursts of damage and using skills for insane amount of defensives that can also be turned offensively to attack or escape. Our setup will focus around using only the best skills that will allow us to evade the enemy while continuously dealing ranged damage with our bow skills. The bow is a great weapon, and we will increase its damage even further by increasing its AoE and explosive damage potential. As I've said, this build is not the easiest to play, so if you want a challenge, but at the same time be rewarded with a fun and powerful PvP performance, then this setup might be for you. So let's take a look at the build. For our gear choice, we will go with the light armor, as this will give us maximum damage and 2 really good dodge rolls. Since this build has already insane defensives from the Rapier setup, so in return we can afford to go with the weakest category. Then next we have the attributes, and we want to get 25 strength, from 350 to 400 dexterity, then 150 intelligence, and finally 100 constitution. As I've mentioned, some players prefer to go even more extreme and don't spend any points in constitution, but I still prefer the extra HP for the hard bosses, or if I ever get in trouble for being out of position in PvP. Next up we have our setup for the bow. This layout is more focused around damage over time. Also, as I've mentioned, our objective is to deal as much damage as possible from the range, so he will upgrade that aspect as much as we can. And then again, this is how it should look like for the Rapier. So on the other hand, the Rapier in this case is our primary defensive tool that we can use for mobility, and at any moment we can run away or perhaps run into another fleeing enemy. If you're interested in the best gear, perks, consumables and everything else, then keep watching until the end of the video. Overall, this build is very fun and strong, as most of our skill usage will be the difference between winning or losing a fight. So if you really want an in-depth playstyle, then I definitely recommend to try this build out. Next we have Rapier with the Ice Gauntlet. This weapon combination is one of the most powerful builds in the game, specifically for PvE, as by using the Rapier's flourish and finish skills, we will stack incredible amount of bleeds and deal massive amounts of damage. Also, as we can use evade to cancel the animations or Taundo spell, so we will increase our DPS even further by using the evade perks. And then on top of this, the Ice Gauntlet is your backup weapon that increases your damage over time in both single target and AoV fights. Also, the Ice Storm will greatly improve the AoV damage of this build and help you to provide passive DPS in single target fights and much more. So let's take a look at our setup. And for the weight, we can again choose between medium or light, as both of them are similar and won't really impact the performance. For this specific build, I prefer the light armor, as I'm trying to deal huge amount of damage from close and long range. So having high mobility and quick bursts of damage is my main playstyle, where these weapons will shine. And then for attributes, we want to get 200 dexterity, then around 350 intelligence, and also 100 constitution. I personally think that having 100 con and by using Rapier itself is plenty enough of defense. But of course you can go even more extreme and sacrifice all of the constitution, but for the average player I don't recommend it. And then lastly we have the skill tree setup, and this is how it should look like for the Rapier. So as I mentioned previously, we will stack as much bleed and damage over time as possible. So then our second weapon will increase our AoV and CC even further. And then again, this is how it should look like for the Ice Gauntlet. So as we went full DPS for the Rapier, so here I switched one DPS skill for one defensive skill. But besides that, we again went full DPS, with extremely strong CC skills that will stun and destroy any enemy that crosses our path. If you are interested in the best gear, perks, consumables and everything else, then keep watching until the end of the video. And overall, if you're looking for a bit of an old school build which been the meta for many years now, then here it is. And then for the last and final one, we have the Rapier with the spear. This setup is mainly a PvP diving build that uses high single target damage and crowd control of the spear, while also having incredible mobility and defensive options from the Rapier. On top of this, the setup can be used as a secondary source of burst damage, or as a player to CC a target to then begin a spear combo. This weapon combo will allow us to dive into the enemy lines, then focus on one target and then again easily escape. So let's jump into our weight choice. And for this one we went with the light category. The Rapier by itself is a very quick and agile weapon, so mostly going light category is probably the most optimized choice. Next we have attributes, and we want to get 100 strength, then from 350 to 400 dexterity, then 25 focus, and then finally also 150 constitution. We mainly wanted to focus on cooldown reduction and high base and crit damage. Although keep in mind that these numbers are not set in stone, so you could easily mix and match 50 constitution with 50 dexterity in either direction. Next we have our skill tree setup, and this is how it should look like for the spear. So we mainly built it around some of the best crowd control skills and armor penetration. And then again, this is how it should look like for the rapier. So for this one we focused on high bleeds and mobility tools to escape or catch a player. However, as we don't have many defenses, so you will need to get used to using the CC skills to stop and stun enemies, rather than having to block or cancel their attacks.